FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
Energy and resource supply and demand, I call the chapter, Too Many Americans, Our Carbon Copies. Because they're all our carbon copies. And this is what happens, basically, when flat meets crowded. When so many people can now live like Americans. One of my real helpers on the book was a gentleman named David Douglas, who was the Chief Sustainability Officer for Sun Microsystems, and a wonderful environmental engineer. And Dave has a certain, math side to him, and he would often just send me emails of different quirky issues that arose. One day he sent me an email, and he said, I was thinking about this, that there's going to be another billion people on the planet between now and 2020. What would happen, he said, if we gave each one of the next billion just one 60-watt incandescent light bulb? Everyone should have a light bulb. What would be so bad? Each bulb doesn't weigh much, said Dave, roughly 0.7 ounces with the packaging. But a billion of them together weigh around 20,000 metric tons, or about the same as 15,000 Priuses. Now let's turn them on. If they're all on at the same time, it would be 60,000 megawatts. Luckily, the next billion will only use their bulbs 4 hours a day, so we're down to 10,000 megawatts at any moment. Yikes. Yikes. Looks like we'll need 20 new 500 megawatt coal-burning power plants just so the next billion people can turn on one light bulb. That's what happens when flat meets crowded. And I actually started thinking about this a year ago. I was started working on the book, and I went to 2 cities that you can be excused if you've never heard of. One is Doha, Qatar, capital of Qatar, a small peninsular state off the east coast of Saudi Arabia in the Persian Gulf. The other is Dalian, China. I was on my way to Iraq. I stopped in Doha, a city I've actually been visiting for the last 20 years, but I had not been there in 3 years. I got off the plane, friends met me at the airport, they drove me to downtown Doha. I looked around, and I said, that's Manhattan. You sprouted Manhattan since the last time I was here. Literally off the desert floor was a Manhattan-like skyline of glass and steel skyscrapers, all lit up just as ours are, all air-conditioned, just as ours are. They grew Manhattan since the last time I was there. I went to Iraq, came home, hugged my wife, went to Dalian, China. Now, I've been a frequent visitor to Dalian because Dalian is the outsourcing software capital of China, and I spent a lot of time with the mayor there writing The World is Flat, but I hadn't been there in 3 years either. They already had a Manhattan, and had grown another since I had been there. So I came home and was talking about it with my wife, and I was just saying, so great, honey, all the neighbors got hybrid cars. Doha and Dalian, 2 cities you've never heard of. Ate that for breakfast. Oh, it's wonderful that the state of Maryland passed new insulation standards for new buildings. Doha and Dalian, they had that for lunch. I'm really glad you at your office or school changed all your light bulbs from incandescents to CFLs. Doha and Dalian, 2 cities you've never heard of, snacked on that before dinner like so much popcorn. That's what's going on as flat meets crowded. Now, a friend of mine in the book, Tom Burke, who runs a wonderful environmental NGO in London called E2, has coined a new order of measure. He calls it the Americum. And Tom says an Americum is any 300 million people living like Americans. When I grew up in the 50s, there were 2.5 Americums in the world. America, Western Europe, and Japan. Today there are 9. There's America, there's Western Europe, there's Eastern Europe and Central Europe and Russia, there's Japan, there's an Americom in India, giving birth to another, an Americom in China, giving birth to another, one in South America. We've gone, in about the last 20 years, from a world of 2.5 Americoms to a world of 9 Americoms, units of 300 million people living like Americans. The energy and natural resource implications of that are going to be staggering unless we redefine what it means to live like an American. You know, when I grew up, we always thought if everyone in the world lived like an American, it would have meant we won. It would have meant that everyone in the world is free. In a world that's hot, flat, and crowded, if everyone lives like an American, it'll mean we are all unfree, because the restraints that Mother Nature will impose on us will be far more severe than anything communism ever thought up. So we have this huge responsibility to redefine what it means to be an American. Second,